may this be one of the best moments of your life. You're listening to the Business Mirror podcast for a broader look on business with senior editor Dennis Estopace.
Good day, I'm Dennis Estopace, and welcome to BM Broader Look podcast. Our topic for today is the impact of new taxes on tobacco farmers. Two journalists collaborated for this story. They are Business Mirror reporters Elijah Feliz Rosales and Jasper Emmanuel Arcalas. The story, published in the Business Mirror's Broader Look page in August 2019, tackled the plight of tobacco farmers as well as their future in the face of higher cigarette taxes to be applied this year. Arcalas and Rosales traveled to Candon City, Ilocos Sur, the country's tobacco capital, to gather insights on the ground on the prospect of the tobacco planting sector. For the text version, please go to www.businessmirror.com.ph and search for Tax Thrust Threatens Tobacco Tillers' Stake. The story of that title was published in the Broader Look section of the Business Mirror newspaper on August 15, 2019. It was awarded Tobacco Story of the Year in the 13th Brightleaf Agriculture Journalism Awards. Let's get on with the story. The window of a red bus along MacArthur Highway going northward to Candon City, Ilocos Sur, frames a blurry but picturesque swath of greenery still glistening from the early morning downpour. Again, July has arrived. Time is like a blur, as 4 months prior to today's journey, the landscape was painted brown, mirroring this northern Philippine countryside's pride produce, tobacco. This day the landscape was also dotted by bobbing figures, farmers on rice paddies. They fight the sun with wide-brimmed buntal hats and the yellow and red long sleeves of their camisos de chino. The towering Mount Tirad, the province's third highest mountain, lends a faint shadow. These farmers have to wait until October before they can begin growing tobacco again. The waiting extends for 150 days, when harvesting begins in March, until April. For now, they trust and hope that the rice seeds of the grass species or Rhiza sativa that they've been planting would tide them over. Some would say it's a misplaced trust, as the buying price of palay declined to a 2-year low of 17 pesos and 85 centavos per kilogram in end June, with a spike in rice imports following the liberalization of the rice trade. Some concede that if only better opportunities exist out there, they would abandon these lands for good. Their hopes to live a bare minimum life, therefore, rest upon tobacco. After all, this town is the country's tobacco capital, but some would consider this as false hope, as the number of tobacco farmers and the land area for tobacco growing have been contracting over the years. Dusk settled on July 25, and Reynaldo Acosta, a farmer, was slumped on a worn gray sofa. His eyes are glued to the live television broadcast of President Rodrigo Duterte, leading an entourage on the newly inaugurated bypass road in Candon, 10 kilometers southeast of Acosta's home in Santa Lucia. The evening news came showing the president signing into law the imposition of higher taxes on tobacco products. The 55-year-old Acosta never smoked his whole life, but the news affected him more than it did a chain smoker. Another round of sin tax hikes, another year of lower income, he mumbled, as newscasters switched to talking about an actress' gym workout program. Acosta has spent over half his life as a farmer supplying tobacco for the country's biggest tobacco growing and processing company. With the impending implementation of heavier taxes on tobacco items, he is left with two options: to stay or leave town. Leaving town means abandoning tobacco planting. Across Acosta's home is the house of Andrea Reyes, where the 70-year-old also mulls the future. It is minutes before midnight, but Reyes has just woken up, having slept off exhaustion from working the whole day on her farm. Her house in Banayoyo, a municipality 10 kilometers northeast of Candon, was visited by gloom after learning the news about a tobacco tax hike. Like Acosta, Reyes ran the numbers in her head and sighed. Her take-home income from tobacco farming next year will be reduced with higher taxes on smoking products in place. Reyes has been growing tobacco since the company buying their harvest arrived in 1964. Up to now, I'm still here, Andrea said, adding she's proud of sticking with the tobacco growing sector through 8 presidents. She said she tried shifting to other crops, but none can equal the income she was getting from tobacco farming. She said it used to be the best source of income here in Ilocos North, in Ilocos Sur, but things have changed over the past years. President Duterte signed Republic Act 11346 last July 25, 2019. Republic Act 11346, or the Tobacco Tax Law of 2019, would further increase the tax slapped on tobacco products starting January 1, 2020. Republic Act 11346 increases the excise tax from the current 35 pesos per pack to 45 pesos per pack, or less than $1 per pack in 2020. This is followed by a series of 5 peso hikes until the rate reaches 60 pesos, or about $1.15 in 2023. By the year 2024 and every year thereafter, the increase hits 5%. Republic Act 11346 did not only raise excise taxes, but also put a cap on the share of tobacco-producing provinces from government revenues. Provinces producing Virginia tobacco would still receive 15% of the tobacco excise tax the government collected. However, the share shouldn't exceed 15 billion pesos. Provinces producing burley and native tobacco would now receive 5%, instead of 15% of government revenues. Their share would be capped at 4 billion pesos. The tobacco tax law also expanded the programs that local government units, or LGUs, of tobacco-producing provinces could fund using their share of the revenues. Under the tobacco tax law, the share in government revenues would be directly remitted to the tobacco-producing provinces. The head of the National Federation of Tobacco Farmers Associations and Cooperatives, or NFT-FAC, said the increases in excise taxes would end in lower buying prices. Bernard Vicente, NFT-FAC's president, explained that the reduction in consumption of cigarette would discourage manufacturers from producing more. Vicente said this would reduce the volume of tobacco that manufacturers buy from farmers. Vicente told the Business Mirror that they can no longer plant tobacco at the pace they had prior to the signing of the law. Likewise, they have to cut the size of land they allot for farming. At the end of the day, Vicente said, it would negatively impact their income. Indeed, this is a case of supply and demand economics. When demand for cigarettes decline on higher taxes, manufacturers are compelled to adjust their production downward. As such, they buy less from farmers like Acosta and Reyes for their tobacco leaf requirement.
Naapektuhan kami dahil hindi kami makahingi ng pataas ng presyo ng tabako, pagkatapos sa kataas ng bilihin. At saka po kumukonti naman ang magtatanim na ng tabako dahil yun nga, sinasabi nila walang kaming kinikita. At saka yun lang, kaya kami nagtsatsaga kasi yun lang ang aming alam na
gawin na
tinatanim na pagsasaka sa buhay na ng buhay namin.
However, demand is just one of the manufacturer's worries. Supply is also a worry. And supply comes from the number of producers, which has been going down. The number of farmers engaged in tobacco planting fell 5.28% to 32,652 in 2018, from 34,465 in 2017, based on records from the National Tobacco Administration. At the start of the decade, there were some 49,897 tobacco planters in the Philippines. However, as tax hikes were rolled out on tobacco products, the headcount of farmers dropped 4.6% steadily every year from 2010 until 2018. Acosta himself witnessed some of his friends leaving the sector for good. Acosta still wrestles with such a decision. Because for one, he is managing 3 hectares of land where he cultivates tobacco during the dry season, and second, how could he turn his back to a valuable memory? Acosta told the Business Mirror he was able to send his kids to school using income from tobacco growing, and his siblings finished their studies with the money they earned from planting tobacco. Acosta said they know the value of tobacco. They are used to growing it, and he sees himself and his family depending on it no matter what.
Sa awa ng Diyos, nakapag-aral naman sila, kaya maasa na lang.
Dahil po sa tabako, sir.
Dahil sa
Kung dito sa Order Luzon, talagang sa tabako kami umasa.
Meanwhile, Reyes said she still has lots of mouths to feed and dreams to fulfill. Reyes said she was able to support the education of her 3 children, one who graduated with a double degree. This was through income from tobacco farming. The septuagenarian has no plans of calling it quits, as she still wants to support her grandchildren. Marcelino Enbiala, executive of the company that buys from farmers like Acosta and Reyes, believes that tobacco tax law has thrown a monkey wrench in the gears of the tobacco industry. Biala knows what he's talking about. He's been in the industry for 37 years, 22 years for the private sector, and 15 years for the government. Biala told the Business Mirror that as someone who has been in the heart of the industry for so long, he knows the taxes will affect the behavior of their clients.
Ang nakikita ko na kasi pag masyadong mataas ang syntax or taxes, hirap din yung mga end users na magbigay ng price. And on our part, naiipit kami sa gitna kasi gusto rin namin tulungan din ang farmers. Hindi namin magagawa kung iniipit na rin kami ng mga farmers. Dahil naroon sa simpleng margin din nila. Hirap.
Biala is the director for growing operations of a Richmond, Virginia, United States headquartered multinational firm. As an executive of a contractor, Biala said it is but expected for tobacco manufacturers to buy less processed leaf from them next year, with higher taxes in place. Biala said it is difficult to explain to farmers why they are buying their produce at lower prices and lesser volume. For 67-year-old tobacco farmer Ernesto Calindas, prices of their tobacco are just one of his worries. Calindas, who has been planting tobacco for 20 years, has seen production costs ever rising, with the scarcity of farm workers as one of the reasons. Calindas said he's now paying 350 pesos per hectare per head, since laborers have been scarce. Calindas said it used to be less than 300 pesos per hectare per head. Laborers, Calindas explained, have opted to shift to other sectors such as construction, which offers way higher wages. To note, the legislated minimum daily wage in Ilocos Sur for plantation workers is pegged at 295 pesos, about $5.64. The legislated minimum daily wage in Ilocos Sur for non-plantation workers is about 282 pesos, or $5.39. Another cost is the shortage in fuel wood, which farmers use in curing or to cooking tobacco. Calindas said he spends around 60,000 pesos, about $1,146, for his total fuel wood requirement, at an estimated current cost of 1,000 pesos per cubic meter. That is about $19.10. Calindas estimates the production cost of tobacco right now is at least 130,000 pesos per hectare. That is about $2,484. A farmer should produce at least 1,800 kilograms of tobacco to break even, Calindas said. Government data paints the country's tobacco industry in terms of output as declining. This includes farmers and area of planting in the past decade. The industry attributed the decline in these 3 areas to farmers who are aging and who are migrating to higher income-generating jobs, such as construction work. The industry also blames higher excise taxes. Roberto Ciares, the National Tobacco Administration chief, told the Business Mirror the Philippines used to produce 160 billion sticks of cigarettes, but this went down to 74 billion sticks in 2017. The country's tobacco output declined at a compounded annual growth rate of 5.6% from 2010 to 2018. Tobacco production in 2018 fell to a decade low of 43.241 million kilograms, which is 10.25% lower than the 48.179 million kilograms recorded in 2017. Tobacco output peaked in 2011 at 79.329 million kilograms, just a year before the Sin Tax Law of 2012 was enacted. Meanwhile, the area planted with tobacco has declined by an average of 4.19% from 2010 to 2018. Total tobacco area last year, or in 2018, was estimated at 22,794.95 hectares. This is nearly 32% smaller than the 33,502.75 hectares recorded in 2010. NTA Chief Chiares, however, said that National Tobacco Administration couldn't do anything about the tobacco tax law. We just have to support it and help the government, Chiares said, recalling the months-long deliberation on the tobacco tax law. Nevertheless, Chiares said the Philippine tobacco industry is still waiting for the fat lady to sing. He even believes the local tobacco output won't fall any further below 43 million kilograms, which the Philippines produced in 2018. Chiares said the Philippines has a high demand for global market, and they are demanding about 32 million kilograms. Chiares added that foreign buyers love the Philippines products due to the taste and aroma. He cited as an example the Burley cigarette, which is very competitive against that of the American cigarette. The country's combined unmanufactured and manufactured tobacco exports in 2018 rose by 36.29% to a record high of 79.875 million kilograms from 58.606 million kilograms. Based on National Tobacco Administration data, the increase was driven by the doubled volume of shipments in manufactured tobacco in 2018, which reached 41.96 million kilograms from 18.47 million kilograms in 2017. The data from the National Tobacco Administration also showed that the value of the country's total tobacco exports grew by 60.04% to $511.065 million from $319.337 million in 2017. Chiares, the NTA chief, said the country's top buyers are Malaysia, Vietnam, Singapore, Indonesia, United States, and Belgium, among others. Aside from the bright export demand, Chiares believes higher taxes would fail to dampen local demand for cigarettes, but only prompt smokers to shift to cheaper brands. Once you start smoking, you cannot stop it, Chiares, a medical doctor by profession, said. Interestingly, a study by Mirna Austria of De La Salle University and Jason Pagaduan of the Asian Development Bank revealed that the rise in cigarette prices have resulted in a decrease of smoking intensity, or the amount of sticks consumed by a smoker, more than in a decrease in the number of users, or smoking prevalence. The author said the results show that the increase in excise tax has been effective in reducing cigarette consumption in the country, and in making cigarette demand more responsive to price increases. Specifically, the tax reform has reduced the number of cigarettes purchased by smokers more than the number of cigarette users, Austria and Pagaduan added. The study noted its findings are consistent with previous studies that a rise in income increases the demand for cigarettes. The study added that college graduates are more likely to consume fewer cigarettes, while poor households are relatively more responsive to increases in cigarette prices than rich households. NTA Chief Chiares is urging tobacco farmers to push for higher floor prices during the tripartite meeting in September. Doing so, he explained, would help them cope with the rising production costs. Chiares pointed out that the floor prices make the tobacco industry unique and more profitable than any other commodity. Chiares said tobacco is the only commodity with floor prices, and other commodities have no ensured market, resulting in unstable prices. The NTA conducts a tripartite conference every 2 years, wherein new tobacco prices are decided upon. The conference serves as a venue for tobacco farmers and tobacco companies, these are cigarette manufacturers, tobacco dealers, and exporters, to evaluate and negotiate the floor prices of unprocessed tobacco leaves. Vicente believes that farmers would ask for an increase in floor prices, which is more than what they proposed 2 years ago. During the last tripartite negotiations in 2017, farmers insisted on an increase of 16 pesos and 77 centavos across all grades to cope with rising production costs. Vicente added the rising needs of farmers are behind this push for higher floor prices. Calindas also pointed to tobacco buyers as the reason the farmers are increasing their income decrease. Calindas said some tobacco buyers are downgrading the quality assessment on their produce. Calindas said because of this, they are forced to sell their tobacco to cowboys, their pejorative term for illegal middlemen, during trading seasons. Calindas recalled his experience during the last trading season in March, when a buyer offered 64 pesos for his best grade tobacco. Calindas said he offered 77 pesos to a cowboy, and they agreed on 75 pesos. only to learn later the cowboy sold his goods to the buyer he originally approached.
Yung middleman, yung cowboy, yung tinatawag nilang middleman, sabi kung gano'n, magkano ang presyo mo dyan? Sabi, ikaw magsasabi dahil ikaw ang may-ari. O sige, para wala nang tayong maraming usapan, straight 78.
Lahat.
Wala nang 78, wala nang 60, wala nang 50, wala nang 40.
Mayag.
Sabi niya, 70 ko bebenta eh. Bigyan mo naman ako ng kahit 3 piso. O sige, 75. Okay, deal. O, bakit yung bibili nila sa akin, doon din dadalhin? Ha? Doon natin nakikita na meron problema. Pero problema.
Pagka binili na sa isa ng 75, doon yung binili sa loob.
Doon din dadalhin. Ay, saan dadalhin? Wala nang bibili.
Eh di 82 binigay nun.
Ay, ewan ko na lang.
Chiares said they have conducted training with traders to harmonize standards and leaf grading. Plus, he added, NTA officials accompany farmers to the trading market when dealing with legitimate traders. Chiares also encouraged tobacco farmers to complain directly to him if they experience irregularities in leaf grading from legitimate traders. Vicente said that since the floor prices were increased, unscrupulous buyers tend to downgrade the quality of tobacco sold to them by farmers to avoid paying higher prices. It's a perennial problem in the industry, according to Vicente, who added this has forced farmers like Calindas to sell their produce to cowboys. Vicente said they have been proposing that instead of private entities, only NTA officials or employees grade tobacco produce during trading season to avoid certain biases. Tobacco industry stakeholders, particularly end users, have been urging the government to curb the proliferation of illicit cigarette trade in the country. The stakeholders have also cautioned the government that higher excise taxes on tobacco products would encourage more illicit cigarette trade in the country. In late June, the tobacco private sector representatives requested a meeting with the NTA board to discuss the illicit cigarette trade. During that meeting, the private sector disclosed that the amount of seized illicit cigarettes in 2018 doubled to 157 million sticks, worth 628 million pesos, from only to 89 million sticks valued at 356 million pesos in 2017, according to the NTA. Illicit cigarette brands are sold for as low as 20 pesos per pack to 40 pesos per pack in the domestic market. This is greatly cheaper than the 51 pesos per pack to 78 pesos per pack of legal brands, the NTA added. The illicit cigarette trade not only damages business operations of legitimate manufacturers but also deprive the government with revenues, the NTA said. Vicente sounded the alarm that the expansion of programs that could be funded by LGUs through tobacco excise taxes could lessen pro-farmer projects even while the industry is still thriving. Vicente said they have called the attention of LGUs funding projects like construction of water fountains and covered courts that do not benefit tobacco farmers. Vicente believes local officials regard them as idiots for complaining but use billions of funds using the name of the organization. The organization Rights Services Incorporated, or RSI, said it is high time for LGUs to include tobacco farmers in their budgeting process. The RSI noted that doing so would ensure that the sin taxes allocated to every tobacco-producing LGU would be used for the benefit of the farmers. Allowing tobacco farmers to directly participate in the local budget process is expected to further improve their income and eventually help them shift to healthier and more productive crops, RSI Program Manager Cynthia Esquilo said in a statement. Calindas considers himself lucky compared to other tobacco farmers. As a Candon City resident, Calindas receives 15,000 pesos or about $287 in cash for every hectare that he plants with tobacco. The assistance comes from the excise tax share that Candon receives annually from Virginia Tobacco Production. Candon City also provides tobacco farmers with free farm inputs such as seedlings, fertilizers, and insecticides, among others. Calindas explained that some farmers in other tobacco-producing provinces do not receive any assistance from their LGUs. Calindas said that if government really wants farmers like him to survive, government should increase the assistance for about 50,000 pesos more for their fuel, wood, and gas. Calindas says, however, this still would not be enough.
Ang opinion ko lang, total, ang laki naman yung 7171 na nanggagaling doon sa excise tax. Dapat, kung hindi man kami matulungan doon sa presyo ng tobacco, daragdagan naman yung assistance. Yung para sa ganon, para sa kanong mainggan niya yung tao na
Calindas only learned during the interview with Business Mirror, held the day after the signing of Republic Act 11346, that excise taxes would increase anew next year. He temporarily went pale, as if he had seen a ghost, and glanced at the rice farm behind his house. It was as if Calindas couldn't believe the news that the President signed Republic Act 11346, and he mumbled that if that's the case, he may have to stop planting tobacco.
Habang tumataas ang tax yan, lalong umihirap kami. Dahil kami naman magpapasan yung kinukolekta nilang waste. Hindi naman nila itataas yung production namin.
Thank you for listening to the Business Mirror podcast. For a broader look on business, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Business Mirror. Until next time.